About to tell you is a national disgrace. For 28 years, the Australian Navy has covered up how close we came to a maritime disaster. By doing so, many of the 67 sailors who almost lost their lives have been forced to deal with it on their own. That ends tonight. Here again is Ross Coulthart.
At the height of the Cold War, two navies rehearsed tactics for a sea battle. The Australian attack submarine HMAS Onlsow is hunting a New Zealand frigate. Suddenly, an enemy aircraft is spotted and the Onlsow prepares to dive.
Helicopter off starboard bow, stop snorting, depth 200 feet.
Stop snorting, 6 degrees, bow down, keep 200 feet.
It's a routine event, but this time something goes wrong.
Get the breathing gear! Mayday, submarine Onlsow. Mayday, fire on board. Submarine Onlsow, we have a fire on board.
What did you see?
Smoke. Just like a wall of smoke. White smoke. It's unbelievable.
Could you see through it?
No.
Weapons specialist Christopher Parslow, only 19 years old, dies on the night. The untold story, how close Australia also came to maritime catastrophe.
Can we not talk about that?
Mate, they made all this up. I reckon this is a cover-up.
You came within a whisker of what could potentially have been one of Australia's biggest naval tragedies.
I do think about it. The submarine's very small, big ocean, very deep ocean. It was extremely close.
For 30 years, the Oberon-class subs played a vital role in Australia's defence. To this day, their intelligence-gathering missions in Asian waters remain secret. Her days of lonely patrolling are over, and the Onslow's now a tourist attraction in Sydney Harbour. But no memorial or mention of the young sailor who died, or how close the crew of 67 came to being lost. Men like Terry Parsons and Greg Doodson.
It feels good to come back. I've always wanted to come back, but just haven't had the right time.
It's hard to be standing where I was and to be around in this tiny little space and just thinking back of everything that was taking place at that same time. You know, there's nobody coming to rescue you. You've got to rescue yourself.
Back some memories.
Cut of the grips, dudes.
Yep.
To them, the tragedy is as vivid as the day it happened 28 years ago.
Helicopter off starboard bow, stop snorting, depth 200 feet.
As the sub begins to dive, the crew is ordered to stop the engine snorting. Submariner slang for how the two diesel engines draw clean air from the surface and snort the exhaust out through a vent into the sea. But then disaster strikes. The vent closes, but one of the engines doesn't stop. It keeps running. Deadly exhaust gas blasts through the engine room into the sub's ventilation system. Christopher Parslow is working below in a room filling with choking fumes. As the Onslsow surfaces, he gets to the upper deck, but collapses into a shower cubicle. When found, he's close to death. He's confirmed dead 3 hours later.
We got a ring from the Navy approximately about 8 o'clock on the Sunday night to say that there had been an accident.
For his father, Peter, there was little immediate information from the Navy, and not much more came in the years that followed.
So you'd never been given a copy of the official explanation for what happened?
We received nothing from the Navy in regards to what happened that day.
The Navy's investigation and its findings were kept secret, classified as restricted information. For decades, neither Christopher Parslow's family nor the Onlsow men would see them. We did by using Freedom of Information laws.
I've only just found out things now, 28 years later, that I didn't even know about from the documents that you gave us to read.
So what caused the tragedy? The Navy investigation blamed operator error, a critical mistake that left one of the engines running and flooded the Onslsow with deadly gas. But many of the crew refused to accept the official verdict they're now hearing for the first time. Terry Parsons was second in charge of the engine room.
There's no doubt in your mind that those engines were turned off at that
Absolutely
point?
no doubt at all.
There's no other explanation?
No, the engines were turned off.
After I switched off the fuel to the engines and watched the revs come down, the revs came down.
Paul Scray was in charge of the engine room that night. This is the first time he's seen the official report which blames him for the tragedy.
I did my job and some.
So does it surprise you to see what's
This is surprising me big time, mate. Big time.
I mean, the clear implication is that you failed to turn off the engine.
Wrong.
Didn't happen?
Didn't happen. Both engines get switched off together, mate.
But you haven't known that this finding was made 28 years ago?
No, I've never known any of this. Makes me feel that I've been wrongly done by here, but I know what I did. I know everything I did. And that's not what happened.
Whatever the cause, one diesel engine continued running. Within 5 seconds, the engine room was filled with smoke.
I'm just confronted by this wall of smoke. Choking, breathtaking, acidic, just rush of guff, which literally just takes your breath away.
Yeah, I was scared. We were all scared.
Get the breathing gear!
The toxic fumes swept into the bottom of the sub where Daryl Snudden was working with young Chris Parslow.
I advised Chris to get out quickly as possible.
Daryl stayed below to shut down the ventilation system, but without breathing gear, he collapsed.
How did you get from that very bottom part of the boat to outside?
I don't know. Don't know.
Somebody saved you?
Must have. I'd like to thank them very much.
Did you never find out who'd helped you?
Never.
I dragged Daryl out. I specifically remember Daryl. As I said, I'd only drafted onto the submarine on the Friday night.
He doesn't know that?
No.
How does it make you feel to know that you saved his life?
It was just an instinctive action.
Send a message. We are on fire. Assistance
Fire on
required.
board. Submarine Onslsow. We have a fire on board.
All around us, people were falling over. I mean, literally collapsing.
The men only have minutes to live, but the Onslsow is now back on the surface. The skipper, John Myers, orders the engines restarted to pump the fumes out. It's their...
The priority was to get rid of these revolting fumes and get clean air in the boat. The only way we could do that was to start the engines.
Jeff Burns was one of 2 men who courageously plunged back into the engine room. As they tried to start a diesel, he ran out of air. After 2 minutes breathing in fumes, he collapsed and was dragged out. But the engine's now running. The sub is saved.
They say your life flashes before your eyes before you die. Well, things just seem to slow right down. What could have been 2 minutes felt like it was an hour, you know.
When we got back, we were told by doctors that about a third of us had carbon monoxide levels in our blood that was twice the lethal level.
18 Onslsow men were found unconscious or having convulsions due to carbon monoxide poisoning. As the fumes cleared, Christopher Parslow was discovered. He'd escaped to the upper deck, but hadn't got much further.
Somebody said that Parslow was down there and he thought he wasn't alive.
Despite desperate attempts, his mates couldn't revive him. He died from carbon monoxide poisoning.
All he had to do was go to the left and into the control room, into the safe hands. But he didn't. He went the other way.
You're not blaming yourself, though, I hope.
Oh, I don't know. You'd sort of think back, maybe could have done something a bit better, I don't know. Maybe I should have helped Chris get out, I don't know.
And the memory never gets any better. You know, it's a child you've lost, and it's a child that, you know, can never be replaced.
At Christopher Parslow's funeral, the Navy presented a white ensign flag to his family. But 2 decades ago, it was stolen. The one they raise twice a year on his birthday and the day he died is a replica. The Navy refused to replace it.
Were you disappointed by that decision?
Very much so, yeah.
Immediately after the disaster, the traumatised crew was given a few days of beer and barbecues at a New South Wales surf club. For some, all the psychological support they'd ever receive.
You know, I think the Navy needs to realise when these accidents happen that, you know, we're only human beings. We need to be sort of helped along the way.
The attitude of the Navy in those days was get over it, hold your head up, do your job, and that's what we did. We didn't have the type of counselling that you have today. I don't think I even saw a chaplain come round.
Years later, Jeff Burns did seek help, and he's needed every bit of it. What you're about to hear has been his terrible burden. In 1981, he told the Navy inquiry he'd seen both diesels switched off, suggesting the tragedy was caused by an engine malfunction. But now...
starboard engine was switched on and its group exhaust was shut.
He's changed his account. He now says one engine wasn't shut down, but 28 years of secrecy have taken their toll.
I'm sort of loath to say exactly what I saw, because I don't know whether it's me, my memory, my mind, or my heart doesn't want to say how I found it. Can we stop?
These men are suffering, you know, through no fault of their own.
Sorry, guys.
And I feel that, you know, that something should be done to help these fellows.
Shortly before the disaster, the men of the Onlsow lined up for a group photo. A tight-knit crew, happy and proud, as good as any in the world. This is not the lasting memory they live with.
You know, you don't know what's around the corner. You don't know what's affecting you. But this has affected me in as much as that you can see what I'm like now. That my emotions are shot, and without the help of my family, my wife, I'd be a nutcase. I might have drunk myself into the ground, or might have even topped myself. You never know. Oh.
So how did it get to this? Straight ahead on Sunday night, what the Navy has to say. The Deputy Chief has just seen our report. His response shortly.
Back now with Sunday Night and the secrets of HMAS Onlsow. It's now 28 years since Australia almost lost the sub's entire crew. They were taking part in war games when overcome by deadly fumes.
What did you see?
Smoke. Just like a wall of smoke. White smoke. It's unbelievable.
Could you see through it?
No, no.
19-year-old Christopher Parslow's lost his life in the accident. Everyone else was given a week off to recover without receiving any adequate counselling. As became clear tonight, there remains a lasting toll.
I do think about it. The submarine's very small, big ocean, very deep ocean. It was extremely close.
This has affected me in as much as that you can see what I'm like now. That my emotions are shot, and without the help of my family, my wife, I'd be a nutcase. Might have drunk myself into the ground, or might have even topped myself. You never know. Oops.
Rear Admiral David Thomas is the Deputy Chief of Navy. Rear Admiral, thanks very much for your time. The Navy loves talking about honour, but it wasn't very honourable this time, was it?
Hey Mike, let me just say at the outset how devastated I was in seeing that clip. It's quite devastating seeing members of the Navy family hurting like that some 29 years or 28 years after the fact. It's absolutely terrible, and I'm here tonight to make sure that we do the right thing by these people.
And will that include compensation and counselling?
We'll do whatever we need to do to be able to get this right for them.
Compensation and counselling?
Well, I think you'll find compensation's already occurred back in the early days where people have gone back through the regional compensation centre in New South Wales. I don't know the fine detail of that, but I do know about counselling, and we don't know, we didn't know that much about post-traumatic stress disorder in those days, as much as we do today. So we'll provide the services that we've got today to those people back then. Yeah. And so counselling, if that's part of it, we'll certainly provide that for certain.
I know you're in a difficult position because this did happen, as you say, 28 years ago. You're sort of sitting in the hot seat now, but are you embarrassed by it?
Let me say that I'm not embarrassed by the Navy at all. I'm a very proud naval officer. I've been in the Navy 35 years, and
But by this incident?
I'm not embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed by this incident. This incident happened. I knew Chris Paslow when I was a young lieutenant. I was 25 years old when this happened. Chris Paslow joined the Navy, joined submarines. I was his divisional officer, the person looking after his welfare at the time on board a ship, and he entered submarines. I know the pain that these people are feeling now. I can just imagine what it must be to still feel it 28 years later. The impact that it's had on them is quite devastating, but I'm not embarrassed by it.
Well, let me put it this way. Could the Navy have handled it better?
I think the Navy could have handled it differently, but I certainly think today we know more about post-traumatic stress disorder than we did then. You saw in the clip they sent these people away. I think that was their attempt to try and get this psychological support that they needed and fix it then. But we know a lot more now about post-traumatic stress disorder, and if they need that psychological assistance, psychological support, we're here to provide that or put them onto the track that they can actually get that support. We're much further down the track some 28 years later.
But you only know about it because we uncovered it, which I think the Navy covered it up.
Well, there was no cover-up in this. That's just not the case. The Board of Inquiry report pushed out the results. There's massive change in the submarine arm as a result of it. A number of people knew about it. Clearly, these people were not in that loop at that time. They were probably devastated by this event. The effects of carbon monoxide are quite devastating, and you can see now that the impact is still there.
Rear Admiral, you say Mr. Paslow. Just briefly, a word for his family tonight?
We share his pain. I know he lost that flag 2 decades ago. I'm in a position where I can fix that, and I'll do that for him.
OK. Well, Rear Admiral Thomas, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks a lot.
And we should point out that veterans and their families can access free and confidential counselling. Simply call 1800 011 046. We'll make sure that number's on our website. Coming up tonight, the Australians held to ransom over the birth of their children.